Welcome back to the deep dive. We are jumping straight into the deep end today because, wow, the reading list you send over is massive.
It's a huge topic.
It is. We're talking about Pharma 4.0, which, let's be honest, has been a buzzword on conference slides for, what, about 10 years now?
At least 10 years. And for a long time, it was mostly aspirational, right?
Right. It was this promise that if we just digitized everything, put sensors on the bioreactors, move the data to the cloud, build the digital twins, then productivity would just skyrocket.
And the investment has been there. I mean, looking at the industry reports,
Yeah.
Pharma has spent billions building the nervous system of these companies.
They are absolutely swimming in data.
They are. But the critique in the source material is pretty sharp. It argues that while we built this amazing nervous system, we forgot to upgrade the brain.
We have what they call human decision-making latency. I circled that phrase.
It's a very polite way of putting it.
It's a polite way of saying we are the bottleneck, isn't it?
It is. I mean, think about the flow of information. You have a factory floor streaming terabytes of data in real time. It moves at the speed of light. But to get an insight from that, a human has to sit down, open a dashboard, export a CSV, maybe schedule a meeting to discuss the squiggly lines.
And by the time the decision is made, the batch is already ruined.
Or the opportunity is gone. The data flows instantly, but the action moves at the speed of an Outlook calendar invite.
Exactly. We've created a human-in-every-loop architecture.
And the whole thesis of today's deep dive is that we're finally seeing the tech that removes that bottleneck. We're not just talking about better analytics anymore. We're talking about agentic AI.
Okay, we need to pause and define this immediately. Because AI is just the noisiest word in the English language right now.
It really is.
And I feel like most people hear AI and they think of ChatGPT, typing a prompt and getting a POM or an email draft. That's generative AI. What makes agentic AI different?
The distinction is vital. Generative AI, the kind we're all used to, is largely reactive. It sort of sits there and waits for you to poke it.
Right.
It's also stateless, meaning when you close the chat window, it essentially forgets you and the context of your project unless you feed it all back in.
So it's a brilliant consultant, but it has no hands.
Exactly. It can advise, but it can't do. Agentic AI is different. It is designed to be proactive and, crucially, stateful.
Stateful, meaning it remembers the context.
It remembers. It maintains a memory of the project's history, the long-term goals, all the constraints. But the real game changer is the agency.
The action part.
Yes. It isn't just generating text. It's connected to your systems. It has permission to use software tools, access APIs, and execute tasks.
So instead of an assistant that says, hey, I think the temperature in vat 4 is too high, an agentic system just, logs into the controller and lowers it.
Precisely. It perceives the problem, it reasons through the solution, and it acts on it. It's the difference between a consultant who gives you a slide deck and a teammate who actually fixes the problem while you're asleep.
That shift from consultant to teammate, that seems to be where the ROI just explodes.
Yeah.
The numbers in these reports are wild.
They're staggering.
We're seeing 30% gains in R&D productivity, a near halving of manufacturing downtime, and this one stat that we have to unpack, compressing drug discovery from, the standard 4 to 6 years down to 18 months?
That 18-month number is the headline. And it's not hypothetical. We are seeing case studies where that is actually happening now.
Okay, so let's break down how. The outline splits this into a few key areas, and I want to start with the architecture, because there's a term in there that sounded straight out of a sci-fi novel. Swarm architecture.
It does sound a bit ominous, doesn't it? Like killer bees.
A little bit, but the logic makes perfect sense. The idea is that you don't build one giant, all-knowing God AI to run your company.
Right. Single, massive models are hard to control, and they're prone to hallucination. Swarm architecture is all about specialization.
Okay.
Imagine you're trying to design a new drug molecule. It's an incredibly complex problem. In a swarm system, you spin up specialized agents. You have a toxicologist agent whose only job is to look for safety risks. You have a patent agent checking IP databases. You have a synthesis agent figuring out if the thing can actually be built in a lab.
And they talk to each other.
They negotiate.
Oh.
And that is the fascinating part. The toxicologist agent might flag a molecule and say, this binds well to the target, but it's going to destroy the liver.
Okay, problem.
Right. Then the synthesis agent looks at it and says, okay, if I tweak this carbon bomb, it saves the liver, but does that violate any patents? And the patent agent weighs in immediately.
It's a virtual boardroom.
It is. But It's a boardroom that runs at the speed of silicon, 247, without egos and without scheduling conflicts. They can iterate thousands of times before a human ever sees the final result.
Which explains how you get to that 18-month timeline in R&D. The source material highlights a specific case study about a drug for idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis.
That's the poster child for this technology.
A really tough disease, and they got a candidate into clinical trials in under a year and a half.
And it worked because of what we call generative molecular design. It's directly related to that swarm concept.
How so?
It's about multi-objective optimization. When a human chemist, even a brilliant one, designs a molecule, they can usually optimize for one or two variables at a time. Maybe they focus on potency and solubility.
Right.
But it is very, very hard for a human brain to simultaneously hold potency, solubility, toxicity, metabolic stability, and manufacturing cost in their head all at once.
We just don't have the RAM for it.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
agents do. So they don't just find the drug that works. They find a drug that works, is safe, doesn't infringe on patents, and is cheap to make. They solve the downstream problems before they even happen.
I loved the other part of the R&D section, too, about target identification. It mentioned that the agents are reading scientific papers.
Millions of them. This is a pure bandwidth issue. There are thousands of biomedical papers published every single day.
No human scientist can keep up with that. You'd spend your whole life just reading the abstracts.
And you'd still miss things. The agents ingest the entire corpus of biomedical literature papers, patents, trial results from the last 50 years. They can spot these obscure connections. Maybe a link between a rare genetic marker and a disease pathway that was mentioned in a footnote in some paper from 1998.
The ultimate librarian, connecting the dots that we simply can't see. Okay, so we've used the swarm to find the drug. We've designed it. Now we have to make the stuff. Let's move to the self-driving factory.
This is where the concept of acting really becomes tangible. We are moving from automated manufacturing to autonomous manufacturing.
Make that distinction for me. Because factories are already pretty automated, right? Robots put caps on bottles.
Automation is just following a script. If X happens, do Y. It's rigid. Autonomy is goal-oriented. It's, here is the objective. Keep the batch healthy. You figure out how to do it within these safety boundaries.
The example in the notes was a fermentation vessel, standard biotech stuff.
Right. In the old world, if the food source, the substrate, starts running low, a sensor trips an alarm. A human operator has to stop what they're doing, walk over, check the chart.
Maybe call a supervisor.
Exactly. And while all that is happening, the cells are getting stressed. That's the latency again.
Right.
In an agentic system, the agent perceives the trend toward depletion long before the alarm even goes off. It reasons that the feed rate needs to go up. It checks the validated safety ranges, the guardrails, and if it's safe, it just does it. It increases the feed rate.
No alarm, no panic, just a log entry.
Optimized feed rate at 10.42 a.m. Done.
The other part of manufacturing that blew my mind was predictive maintenance. The sources mentioned acoustic signatures. The agents are literally listening to the machines.
They are. Every pump, every motor has a specific sound when it's running perfectly. When a bearing starts to wear out, that pitch changes. Often in a way a human ear can't even hear over the factory noise.
And the agent detects that tiny shift.
Immediately. But it doesn't just flash a red light, right? This is the agentic part. A red light is just another alarm for a human to manage.
So it takes the next step.
It takes the next step. It checks the production schedule in the ERP system. It sees, okay, this bearing is failing, but I can probably run for another 48 hours. And look, there is a product changeover scheduled for Tuesday at 2 p.m.
So it schedules the mechanic for the downtime that already exists.
Yes. It orders a part, it books the maintenance slot, and it informs the plant manager. It turns an emergency breakdown into a planned maintenance event. That's how you get that 43% reduction in downtime. You stop the unplanned stops.
It's orchestrating the fix, not just identifying the break. And this predictive capability, it extends outside the factory walls, too. The supply chain section had this great example about cold chain logistics.
This is so critical for things like vaccines or biologics that have to stay frozen. Traditionally, we rely on data loggers. You put a tracker in the box, and when it arrives, you download the data.
It's an autopsy. Congratulations, your shipment arrived, but it melted in Phoenix 3 days ago.
Exactly. It's too late. Agentic AI is looking forward. It monitors weather APIs along the entire shipping route. It sees a heat wave forming over a highway in Arizona 3 days from now.
It's predicting the excursion before it even happens.
And acting on it. It reasons that the current refrigerated truck won't be able to hold the temperature against that external heat. So before the truck even leaves the warehouse, the agent reroutes the shipment or upgrades the packaging.
It solves the problem before the problem exists.
That's the paradigm shift.
That is wild. It's playing chess with the weather. Okay, let's move to section 4. The sources call this the boring but high-impact stuff. Commercial and regulatory.
Boring is where the margin is. And
Yeah.
frankly, this is where so much of the human misery is in these companies.
Yeah.
Think about a regulatory submission to the FDA. It's a mountain of paperwork.
Tens of thousands of pages, and you cannot make typos.
No, compiling that dossier involves pulling data from the lab system, the factory logs, the clinical trial database, formatting it all perfectly. It is manual, painful drudgery.
And agents can automate that compilation.
They pull the data, format it into the required ECTD structure, and prepare the draft. The stat in the report says that accelerates submission processing by 75%,
That's months of time saved getting a drug to market.
which means patients get treatment sooner. And it keeps you compliant. These agents can scan global regulatory feeds 247. If the EMA in Europe changes a labeling rule, the agent spots it, maps it to your internal documents, and flags exactly what needs to change.
So you don't get blindsided. Now, on the commercial side, the efficiency gains are even higher, 85%. This seemed focused on marketing and sales.
It's about personalization. Historically, pharma sales is a bit of a brute force game. Reps visiting doctors hoping they have time to talk. Agents allow for hyper-segmentation. They analyze real-time prescribing data, publication history.
So instead of a generic pitch, the agent tells the sales team, Dr. Smith just started seeing patients with this very specific condition.
Exactly. And here's a new clinical paper that is relevant to exactly that condition. Center this. It's providing value rather than just noise.
There was also a note about medical affairs answering doctors' questions. I thought this was a really important example of those guardrails we mentioned earlier.
Yes, pharma companies get thousands of these inquiries. What's the dosage? Does this interact with aspirin? Agents can handle the standard on-label questions instantly.
But what if a doctor asks something tricky, an off-label question?
That is where the agent's reasoning capability is tested. It has to know what it doesn't know. It recognizes this is an off-label query. I am not authorized to answer this. And it immediately routes that specific email to a human medical science liaison.
That handoff is crucial. Which actually brings us to the most important section of this deep dive. Section 5, the reality check. Because up until now, this sounds like a utopia.
It does.
Drugs in 18 months, factories that fix themselves. But the data shows something concerning. The trust deficit.
The trust deficit, yes.
The report says trust in these systems has actually dropped from 35% to 27% recently. That seems backwards. The tech is getting better, but we trust it less.
It's the valley of despair. When AI is just a concept on a PowerPoint slide, everyone is excited. When you actually try to put an autonomous agent in charge of a billion-dollar production line, reality hits. People get nervous.
And the prediction is that 40% of current initiatives will be canceled by 2027. That is a high failure rate. What's killing these projects?
The biggest killer is the black box problem. You have to understand the mindset of a scientist or a quality assurance officer. Their entire job is to be skeptical. If an agent says, reject this batch, they need to know why.
They can't just take the machine's word for it.
Never. If the AI just says, computer says no, but can't explain the chemical reason behind it, the scientist will just ignore it. Explainability is non-negotiable in this industry.
And then there's the question of liability, governance.
That's the other huge hurdle. If that supply chain agent reroutes the truck to avoid the heat wave, but the truck gets into an accident on the new route, who is responsible?
It's a legal mess.
And finally, we have to talk about the plumbing, the data foundations. The source material used a great metaphor. You can't put a Ferrari engine in a broken car.
Meaning legacy systems.
Yes. Many pharma companies are sitting on 20 years of siloed data, different formats, handwritten logs. An agent works by perceiving the world through data. If the data feeds are broken, or if the lab system can't talk to the factory system, the agent is blind.
So you have to fix the plumbing before you buy the fancy faucet. So how do companies solve this? The outline mentions a framework called Triazendim.
TRISM stands for Trust, Risk, and Security Management. It's a governance framework. But the practical solution, the thing that actually gets these projects approved, is human in the loop, or HITL.
Which sounds like we're stepping back from full autonomy.
Not really. It's about elevation. For the really high-stakes decisions, like releasing a batch of medicine to the public or flagging a serious patient safety issue, you design the system so a human must approve the final action.
So the agent does all the work, the analysis, the prep, the recommendation, but the human pulls the final trigger.
Exactly. The agent does 99% of the legwork. The human acts as the final gatekeeper. This bridges that trust gap. It allows the organization to get comfortable with the agent's logic without surrendering total control.
It changes the human's role from doer to approver.
Or supervisor.
Huh.
And that leads us to the future state. If we look out to 2030, how does this change the industry landscape?
The phrase used in the conclusion was pretty stark. Winner take most.
It's a harsh reality. The companies that figure this out, the ones that clean their data, establish the governance, and deploy these agents, they're going to be operating at a velocity that traditional players simply cannot match.
It's simple math. You can't compete with a competitor who discovers drugs in 18 months if you're still stuck on a 6-year cycle.
It's an existential threat. And for the people working in the industry, it's a massive shift in what work even looks like. We are moving away from being data handlers, people who copy-paste from Excel to PowerPoint.
And moving toward being agent supervisors.
You will manage a team of digital agents just like you manage a team of junior analysts today. You set the goals, you define the constraints, you handle the exceptions, but you don't do the grunt work.
This all culminates in the concept of the autonomous organization, the idea that the entire value chain, from the moment a target is discovered in a lab to the moment the drug is delivered to the patient, operates as a single, intelligent, self-correcting system.
It's a provocative vision. It's a little intimidating, sure, but the efficiency gains and what that means for global health are just too high to ignore.
And that is the thought I want to leave the listener with today. The question isn't if this transition is happening, it's whether your organization is going to lead it or be displaced by it.
That is the question every leader needs to ask themselves right now.
On that note, we are going to wrap up this deep dive. Thank you for helping us navigate the reality behind the buzzwords. And to you, the listener, thanks for tuning in. Keep learning, keep curious, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.